Welcome to Property Mama, episode 25. It is here that I share each week some of the shenanigans that I see in the world of real estate. If we've not met before, my name is Wendy Chamberlain, and I am a buyer's agent, buyer's advocate here in Melbourne, Australia. I've been buying and selling real estate for nearly 3 decades, and I have seen quite a few shenanigans along the way and continue to see shenanigans pretty much every single day in the world that is real estate. So, in previous episodes, you would have heard me talk about this beautiful grand home that we bought in the inner suburbs of Melbourne and the shenanigans that went on with that, with the negotiation that happened. So, this property was going to auction a week or so before Christmas, and my client appointed me to buy the property. First of all, to bid at auction, it ended up being a negotiation, which is what happened over 5 days, this negotiation with this particular real estate agent. And venture to say that there was a little bit of ego involved for that agent. And I'm not quite sure what it is that happens with real estate agents, but boy, oh boy, ego gets involved. I had a call from somebody a couple of weeks ago recently wanting me to do a final inspection for them because of the shenanigans that had gone on for them through the process of them buying the property themselves and having to deal with the real estate agent. And I'll circle back around to that. But what I wanted to share today was more goings on that happened with this purchase of this gorgeous property, landmark property in the suburb. So we negotiated, as I've shared previously, over a number of days, and my client was looking for a longer settlement. The vendor wanted a shorter settlement. Our client offered more money. They wanted to take the money and the shorter settlement. It doesn't work that way. There's a bit of give and take here in the negotiations. And both parties settled on a price that people were happy with and a settlement that people were happy with. And it was based on the fact that the property is vacant and was going to be presented and remain vacant for the settlement period. Because in the contract, it has an amount allocated that you can withhold at settlement if there's something for repairs that needs to happen where the damage has been caused to the property through the settlement period. And it's only a small amount. It's only a few $1,000s. And so if something major was to happen in that property, some major damage to occur that cost more than that amount, well, then our client is still on the hook to settle that property because they're required to do that under the terms of the contract. They've agreed to settle the property on the day of settlement. And if anything is wrong with the property, well, then generally it has to be worked out between the parties beforehand. And if it can't, then settlement still goes ahead and the lawyers sort out what they're going to do. So I actually had a conversation with the real estate agent because prior to the home coming on the market, it had been rented out in two separate areas in the property. There's the old, what would have been the old, I shared the history of the property, and originally the original owner was a local real estate agent, and there's a vault in the property because that's where they used to have the titles. They used to store the titles for the properties that they were selling for clients. So that area of the property had been sectioned off, and that was being rented as a short stay accommodation. And then the rest of the residence was being rented separately. So it was a dual income property. But for the purposes of the sale, the vendor had got any people living there to leave, and then it was vacant. And so that was the premise that we came in to this negotiation, was that the property was vacant. And the agent's like, yeah, it's vacant. Well, the negotiation went ahead. We finally got the deal together on the Friday. Vendors are happy, clients are happy. The following week on the Wednesday, and I remember it was about 7:00 at night, I get a call from the real estate agent. And I'm thinking, why is the real estate agent ringing me again? And I go, yeah. And he says, I've just been advised by the vendor that they're going to rent the property out. Now, we're doing a 9-month settlement. I said, what do you mean they're going to rent the property out? They said they weren't, and we discussed that, and they said they were not going to rent the property out. He says, I know, but they've spoken to the insurance company or somebody, and now they have decided that they are going to rent the property. And I said, well, that's not what the basis was that we purchased this property under. We had a conversation about this, and the property was going to be vacant, and now you're going to put a renter in there, and then any damage that's under the property is probably going to be considered fair wear and tear, and our client's not going to be able to do anything about that. And he goes, I know, but it's the vendor's property. It's their property for another 9 months, and they can do what they want with it. This is what we need to be aware of. If you're listening to this, please be aware that when you are negotiating with a real estate agent, they will tell you whatever they need to tell you to get a deal together. They will tell you all kinds of things. If it's not in writing, then they can just say, well, they changed their mind. So I rang my clients, and they were understandably not happy about this, but there wasn't anything that we could do about it because we based our decision making on the fact it was going to be vacant, and that's what the vendor was telling us. And then now they've decided that they're going to put a renter in there. So I'm having this conversation with this real estate agent and saying, well, you're going to have to try and find a really great renter. And he said, well, yes, we're going to, it's only going to be a 6-month rental, a lease. So we're unlikely to find anyone anyway, but we'll put it at a price that it's going to only attract the top-notch renters in there. So we had no control over that because we don't own the property yet. We based our decision-making on what we were told, and then they've gone and basically moved the goalposts. So the conversation that I had with my client was, and also remember that when I had been negotiating to purchase this property, it was based on my clients having inspected the property and it being vacant. And so there were no additional photos and videos taken of the property to document its state at purchase, at contract signing, versus what the state of the property would be on settlement day and when we can do our final inspection. So my clients understandably said, would you be able to go into the property, given that the vendor has changed what they're doing, and take photos, take videos of the property for us so that we can document its current state before a renter moves in for the 6-month period? And I said, yeah, of course, of course. So I spoke to the real estate agent about that, and he agreed. He said that should be fine. That shouldn't be an issue at all, to just get in there and take the photos. So I organised a time, I remember it was 2 o'clock on a Friday, to before Christmas. So this is the week of Christmas. And it's before everybody pulls up stumps for the holidays. And I spoke to the agent who, mind you, had gone away on holidays and had offshot it to his underling, to his offsider. It was now her responsibility to be dealing with this. To get through the property. So I organised it. It was the Friday before Christmas, and confirmed everything, not a problem. And I was on my way there. I was about 15 minutes away from getting to the property, and I get a call from the agent. And so, as I said, it was a 2 o'clock appointment that we'd made. And at about 10 to 2, the agent rings me and she said, you can't come through the property. The inspection's been cancelled because the vendor's here. I said, what do you mean the vendor's here? Now, mind you, the vendor had moved interstate. And the agent said, yes, well, they didn't tell us they were coming, but the vendor has moved back into the property, and they're staying here. They're staying in the short stay accommodation area, and they've refused entry to you. You're not allowed to enter the property. They have said that you can come back at the final inspection. So you're allowed to do a final inspection when you purchase a property. You're allowed one final inspection, but it is not uncommon, and it's a courtesy for our clients to be allowed back into properties if they want to do measuring, if they perhaps like a first-time buyer wants to show their parents through, they haven't seen it, that kind of thing. There's just a little bit of etiquette in the real estate industry. And I'm saying to the agent, what do you mean we can't look at it? We need to document the before photo, because we purchased this property based on it not being rented out, not being occupied. And now your vendor has decided to rent it out, which is their prerogative to do. However, we would like to take photos and videos of the property to document that. And they said, well, it's going to be rented. So all I can suggest to you is that you come through when it's available, open for inspection for a rental. So I was not allowed to have a private inspection to take the photos and the videos that I needed to for my client. I was told I had to go in as like I was a renter, and that they'd let me know when that was going to be. And I said, well, when's it likely to be? They said, oh, probably in the new year. So I had to keep my eye on when this listing was going to come up available as a rental, likely in early January. I wasn't given a date of when this was going to be. And I saw it, so I was watching it like a hawk, because this was going to be my only opportunity to get through this property for my client and document what I needed. And also bear in mind, rental inspections, they don't give you anywhere near the amount of time or consideration, to be blunt, that you get when you're buying a property. So when you're buying a property, you'll get 30 minutes to look around the property, and oftentimes you can have private inspections. And for whatever reason, someone looking to buy a property is treated with far more respect than someone that's looking to rent a property. You're given 15 minutes to get through a property. So given the size of the property, when it, like I said, I was watching it like a hawk, and I saw it come up online, and it was about 5 days or so into the new year that the inspection was going to be, and it was going to be for 30 minutes, and it was on this particular date. That was the only time it was going to be available. So I waited for that. So I had to wait a couple of weeks until I could see that that was there. And I was not contacted by the real estate agent. Had told me, he had sworn black and blue, he would tell me, he would get in touch with me, he would let me know when it was going to be available. No, he was on holidays. He didn't give a brass razoo about it. He'd gone. He'd left it to the underling. Not only to the underling, it was now to the rental team. And so I saw it come on, and you had to go in there and register to go to attend, which I did. And then I think the day of the inspection, I got a message to say, oh, the property is going to be available today to have a look at. I mean, yeah, let me just drop everything for you and do that, because you didn't have the courtesy to let me know in advance. I did that for my client. I'm looking after my client. You don't care at all. Clearly, once you've got your little commission check written, you don't give two hoots. So I'm standing there, get there a little bit early to make sure that I could get through the property, because it's a large property. And the woman from the rental team rolls up. As I said, the rental people are totally different to the sales people. Can't say they're very polite to you either. So I was waiting there. There was another person there, and she's busy jiggling the keys, and she's singing at the door. And I finally opened it up, and just to takes our name. And yeah, look, they're quite rude, actually. To be honest about, they're quite rude. So I went in and I started filming and taking photos of as much of this home as I could, as fast as I could. I mean, how fast can you film in a room and then go to the next room and film another room and another room and another room? And we're talking about ornate fireplaces and chandeliers and moldings and all those beautiful architectural details that you get in a home of that era, of that size. And I'm documenting everything to make sure, and all around the door frames, so that we can see whether or not things get knocked, looking at the carpet, to make sure that we could document whether or not there were stains that were going to be there that weren't there, all these kind of things. And it's a huge house. It is a huge house. So, and lots of people started coming in that clearly would not have been accepted to rent the home, and unlikely could have afforded to rent the home, but just having a sticky beak, which is what happens when homes get open. People just come through, because like I said, it's a landmark home in the neighborhood. So people would have been wanting to have a look at it, because it's a gorgeous home. So I'm going from room to room, documenting everything over multiple levels, multiple stories of this, and it's massive. This house is massive, massive. And I could hear the agents starting to lock up. People who had come through and then they disappeared. Now, when I was in one of the rooms and the agent was talking to people and so forth, and she'd said to me, she goes, "Oh, are you looking to rent the property?" I said, "No, my client has purchased this property." And she's like, "Oh, okay." And I said, your vendor would not allow us to come in and take photos of the property. It wasn't supposed to be rented. It was supposed to be vacant, but they've decided to do that. And so now I'm documenting photos and videos of the property." And she's like, "Oh, okay then." So she knew why I was there when I explained it to her. And so, as I said, there were lots of people coming and going, and I could overhear conversations that they were saying. So it needed to only be a 6-month lease, and people were going, "Oh, will they extend the lease? Will they take 12 months?" And the agent was saying, "No, whatever reason, blah, blah, blah." So I'm continuing to go from going out onto the front balconies of this beautiful old home and documenting everything. You have to walk through the window to get out onto the front, like the really big sash windows. Walk through that. I step through the window opening onto the front veranda. Just a beautiful, gorgeous home. And I'm walking through, and as I said, I could hear the agent. People had started to leave. They had looked. They started to leave, and she was starting to lock up. I hadn't finished documenting things, and this property is big enough that I could hear where she was, and I'd zip into another room and continue my documentation, and then could hear her coming again. I'd zip into another room because I needed to do this for my client. And then finally, I heard her at the door, and I went up to her. She came up to me and she goes, "I'm closing up now." I said, "Oh, I just need to look out the back, because out the back there is the old stables that have been converted into accommodation." And she said, "I've got another appointment." I said, "Well, I won't be long, and your vendor wouldn't let me do a private inspection to take all the photos for our client who is purchasing this property." And she goes, "I have given you the full 30 minutes." And I said, "No, I won't be long. I just get you to open the back for me." And she run, 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 run. And she went out there and she opened the door, and I said, "Thank you." And I went out and I documented the courtyard, the outside areas. I documented the stables, converted stables, which is not uncommon in the old homes. Many of the old homes have stables that have been converted to accommodation or to garages and things like that, because back in the day they would have had horses that they would have had a livery at the back where the horses would have been accommodated with the straw and their bedding up top, because there's a little bit of a loft thing. You go up a ladder. I didn't go up the ladder, but that's where they would have stored the feed and the grain and things for the horses. I took all my videos and I came back in and I said, "Thank you." And yeah, she is a bit of a Grumpelstiltskin, she was. So it was very interesting in itself. So I finished up the final inspection and I provided those photos and videos to my clients for their reference, for them to have a look at. Under Victorian law, there is fair wear and tear on a rental property for someone living in there. And I know from my own personal experience of having a renter in a property, it's far more is allowed to be damaged than you would otherwise consider to be fair and wear and tear. That's just my personal opinion. We've had tenants do things in a property where they've marked, like significantly marked floorboards and stained them, so it's like a big patch on them, and that's considered fair wear and tear. In my opinion, that's not, because you've got this big, great whopping mark on your boards. But so that's all we were able to do is document the process for our client, and hopefully the renters that did rent the property, as it turns out, the agents, they had to drop the rental, whatever they were asking, they had to drop it by $100 a week because they couldn't get a renter at that level. And they did eventually get somebody that moved in who was renovating their own house, and so just needed a short-term rental to stay in the property. So time will tell how that plays out. But again, the selling real estate agent was true to form and extraordinarily unhelpful. So no surprises there, because that's just what they've been like the whole entire time. But it can be very stressful for people when it comes to buying, and that's why we're there to step in and help them with that process. So chamberlainadvocates.com.au is where you can go to book a time to have a conversation. I would suggest to you that if you are out there hunting for a property at the moment and you're based in Melbourne or Victoria, that we're here to be able to support you. Because remember, the real estate agents aren't out there working for you. They're working for their vendor, clearly, as this example has shown you. And so who is out there supporting you, defending you, standing in the corner, your corner with your back? That's what we at Chamberlain Advocates do for you. We are here to support you. It's why I'm called the Property Mama, because my clients say I'm their mama bear to get in there and support them through the process. And we also have our Get Started in Property.com.au mentoring program. So if you're not based in Melbourne or Victoria, anywhere where you might be in the world, the fundamentals of buying real estate remain the same. The strategies that you use, how to become an expert at what you're doing, an area expert, those fundamentals, irrespective of where you're located, remain the same. So what my Get Started in Property program has been designed to do is to support you on that process where you're looking to buy a home. So if you're not confident or don't feel that you know what you're doing or what you're talking about, or you've never done it before and you just don't know where to start, that is where my Get Started in Property program can be for you. It can be that starting block, that support that you need just to hold your hand when it comes to not knowing what to do in real estate, because there are many, many steps, and I talk about this all the time. Many moving parts is the first thing, but you've got to know the order in which the parts need to be put, and that's where we step in. So getstartedinproperty.com.au, that is there for you to have a look at if you need that little bit of support getting started, or if you're located locally here in Melbourne or Victoria, we are here to help you on your dream home buying property. If you're enjoying the podcast, love to hear back from you. Give us a like. And if I may ask, please share our podcast with a friend or a colleague. And I would love for you to do that, because I'd love to spread the word about what we do, that there is this support out there for you when you're out there amongst all the real estate agents. We are here to support you. That is what we do. So once again, thank you for joining me on Property Mama Adventures in Real Estate. It's always fun to talk about, and I am so thrilled you've been here with me today.